Hey, welcome back, everybody. So, the question of the day is, should women be required to sign up for the draft like men are and be forced to go and fight and die for the country? How I got to this question, I was surfing Reddit like usual, and I saw a video, I think it was of in Ukraine, and they're just showing some like normal looking guy standing on the street somewhere, and a van comes with a bunch of military personnel and pretty much just throws the dudes in the back and, off to the front lines with them. And I've seen videos like that before, and I've seen some from Russia. We had the Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict a few years back, which also, I believe, required a draft. But I was looking at the thread, and there was some back and forth about gender equality in the comments and if the Ukrainian women should be forced to go like the men. So I was reading that, and then I started Googling what feminists say about the draft. So I found this opinion piece. Let's take a look. I'm a feminist. A mandatory military draft would be terrible for our women. Women already sacrifice more for their country than men do, and women should not be asked to bear even more. I want to summarize the boring parts of this article because I'm trying to keep this under 10 minutes. This part, she's just talking about how Democrats and Republicans alike have proposed mandating that women register for selective service. She says military chiefs are for it, and it seems men and women across the aisle seem to be giving an approval of this, being a change. Then she reiterates that she's a feminist and that, we would think she'd be for it, but she's not for it because she's saying women already have an inequitable situation and that this would make it worse. Okay. She then goes on to say that women who volunteer for the military should still be given the right to, so long as they meet the minimum standards, which I agree with. There's nothing wrong with that. Then she says she draws the line at selective service. She goes on to talk about the plight of women in poor countries, women in Afghanistan, women in Liberia, women who die from pregnancy, women get fewer calories than men. They have to watch their children die because powerful men don't care about them and all this kind of stuff. Then she goes on to say that she doesn't oppose a selective service because women are delicate, but she opposes it because women already sacrifice way more for their country than men do. So they shouldn't be asked to have to sacrifice more. She says there should be parity between men and women in the work of protecting our country and giving it a future. Selective service registration for women would undo that parity, placing an unjustly heavy burden on women and making their load far heavier than that of men. What, at a minimum, must the nation have to survive? It must have protection in the form of armed forces whose members are willing to lay down their health and even their very lives if necessary to counter threats to the nation's security. But protection is not enough for a nation to survive. The most expertly protected nation will nevertheless die out in the space of a generation if there is no reproduction. Only through reproduction does a nation have a future. And, okay, I get where she's coming from, because I think about that. Women have to bear kids, or they do bear kids. They can bear children. And, men don't have to do that. And traditionally, men do the fighting and women do the child rearing. So, I get it, In reproduction carried out through the labor and efforts of women is personally quite costly. Women offer to lay down their health and even their very lives that their nation might have a future in the new citizens brought into the world through reproductive labor. That we have not seen this as a patriotic service on a par with men's service in combat says more about our society than it says about the reality of women's valuable service to our country. By the time they reach menopause, about 86% of women in the U.S. have become mothers. Far less than half that percentage of men will have served in the military. So she's pretty much, saying women give birth, and because of that it creates a parity between men who have to get drafted, and therefore it's even. And this doesn't account for the mommy tax on a woman's lifetime earnings of having a child, which can amount to more than $1 million. Having a kid costs money, but that doesn't mean there's no daddy tax. We call that child support over here. So I'm not really convinced by that argument so far. So she's talking about the economic cost of working women who have kids and how hard it is, blah, blah, blah. These lopsided reproductive burdens and caregiving sacrifices are all but invisible in our society. We have all seen many, many monuments to great generals and unknown soldiers in our land. But there is only one monument hidden in the backyard of a church in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, to all of the American women who died in childbirth to give our nation a future, just one. I think it's a little disingenuous. Ultimately, the issue here is a matter of choice, right? when men get drafted, I mean, it becomes illegal not to go to the draft if there is a draft and you're selected for it. As far as women having children goes, that is a choice they can choose to make or choose not to make. So there is a difference there, you know. I'm trying to see if she addresses choice. We women know that it may be our fate to die for our country's future, not on some foreign shore, but in labor on a hospital bed right here in the States. Unfortunately, many of our countrymen do not have the eyes to see. One person commented on the selective service proposal. Until women can be drafted and forced to die in battle, just like men have for centuries, we will not have true equality between the sexes. I say until men can die in childbirth, just like women have for centuries, women should not be drafted and forced to die in battle. Such will simply deepen the existing inequality between the sexes. So that's what Valerie Hudson here believes. And she seems pretty like about it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm just trying to see if she mentioned anything about choice. I want to make sure I missed that. Here we go. So she does mention the word choose here. She says, in fact, the pay gap between mothers and childless women is wider than the gap between childless women and men. That's because I am told women choose to have children. No one forced them. Of course, in today's all-volunteer army, soldiers also choose to fight for their country. No one forces them. But in our cultural treatment of service members, we somehow have come to esteem a soldier's sacrifice above that of the blood and sacrifice of a mother, which to my feminist mind is wrong-headed. So that's kind of a bad argument, especially as the choice goes, because she's not comparing the same things, or she's comparing a woman choosing to have a child to a man or someone choosing to go into the military. She's not comparing a woman choosing to have a child to a man drafted into the military. So, I mean, for a professor, I'm a little disappointed with her logic. Seems to be lacking there in that area. So that's pretty much it. I think we've given this article its just due. At the end of the day, it goes down to choice and being forced to do something by law and compelled, and being punished for it if you don't, versus a choice to do something. So yeah, I mean, women do give birth, and that is an important thing, and we do need that. I mean, especially to create more soldiers and keep the country running and keep the laborers laboring, as she said. She used the word labor, not me. And that's something to be respected for when a woman does that. But, you know, it's a choice. No one is forcing someone to have a child or not. Men will be forced to go to the draft if you are selected for the draft, and we are in fact required by law to sign up for the selective service, where women aren't. So I believe her argument falls short there. The question is what is the solution? Do we just blanket require women to sign up for the draft as well? Even now for men with the draft, there are some exceptions. I read about it before. These are the old exceptions, so I don't know what they would do if there was a draft, in current times. But I think if you're like the sole provider for a household and nobody else could take care of your family, I think like that might get you an exception, things like that. If I was going to propose a solution, I would say men 18 to 25 still continue to get drafted. Women, maybe we can do something like this. Women 25 to 32, if you still don't have a child, you get drafted also. So you sign up for the draft, the selective service, and when your lottery number comes to get drafted, then, you go into the draft office like, hey, I got 2 kids, I'm pregnant, whatever it is. And then that's your exception out of there. But if not, then, hey, maybe it's time to go. And, that also brings up other questions now that I think about it. What about people who were born a man but now identify as a woman? Are they excused from the draft? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. What about non-binary people? There's got to be some kind of law in there somewhere. Maybe I haven't looked into it enough, but these are the questions of our times in terms of gender and gender identity and the roles that they play. So, that's stuff that they got to think about. That's stuff that the law needs to address. Maybe to accommodate all of that so we don't have to worry about who's identifying as what, who's non-binary, who's this, who was born as what. There's just a blanket law that says, citizens, ages, whatever, must sign up for the selective service. And then you can have your conditions. Like if you have a child, that exempts you, whatever. And then that might be a good umbrella to encompass all these people. Because, you know, at the end of the day, a draft still needs to happen. Unless the robots save us. So let's check this out. We might not have to worry about the draft here real soon. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Oh! And he still hit the target. So, you know, maybe this is all a pointless waste of time and nobody's getting drafted. It's probably not true, though. We probably still will get drafted. So let me know what you think in the comments. Is my solution terrible? Will it work? Is it the perfect solution? And let me know what you guys think. What would you guys do? What should we do? What is the answer to this question? You know, is it unequal if only men have to go, but women don't have to go? Would you be annoyed with that or not with that? So let me know. Like, subscribe, do whatever.